It's an honor to talk to you. And of course, the 21st marks 56 years since we lost your father. What I think is so important about the awakening of Malcolm X is that there is this narrative out there that your father was some kind of a violent person. And I get so frustrated when I hear that because I'm like, he was a victim of violence. His father, your grandfather, was a victim of violence. I would even say to some degree, your mother, your grandmother, the way she was treated in the system, she was a victim of violence. And it's like any black person, Angela Davis, they say she was violent. When you speak out against violence, you're suddenly called violent. Speak to that a little bit as far as how folks try and change the legacy of your father.
That's right. And thank you for your question. It's a great one. My father provided the biggest critique of America. And, it's quite simple. When young people were marching and protesting in the 1950s for the same thing our young people are marching and protesting for today, my father came along and said, "We demand our human rights as your brother. We demand our human rights ordained by God." He internationalized the struggle for Black people worldwide, and he introduced a human rights agenda to the civil rights movement. When people ask me these kinds of questions about violence and that he and Dr. King were on opposite ends of the streets, I think that it's just a divisive tactic, and it's so unfortunate because what we're doing is we're teaching our children to discriminate. We're teaching them to hate as opposed to love and to respect and to be progressive and to have the capacity to recognize right from wrong. When we look at the horrors of slavery, um, I don't know how anyone can ever say that my father was violent. He was, a man of significant compassion, and he offered solutions to this human condition that continually exploited and I mean brutally killed uh, people of color, Black, Indigenous people of color, and denied us an opportunity to know the truth of history, the truth of, where civilization began.
Absolutely, absolutely. So for folks that don't know, tell us what the awakening of Malcolm X, what it's about.
It's about my father's young life. Um, the challenges when we're all born into this world basically as good human beings. His mother, father wanted a good quality life for their children and met so many challenges. They were members of an organization that commanded millions of followers seeking freedom and equality. And they instilled specific values in their children. But when his parents were taken away, Malcolm veered off. And it's so much, like hearing Black lives don't matter, right? And the pain and the anguish and running from himself only to be arrested and convicted of robbery and having no choice but to face all of these things from which he was running. And what's so wonderful about this book is we discover Malcolm's humanity along with many other inmates' humanity, that Malcolm was a star debater, and the prison in which he was debated against Ivy League colleges, Harvard University, MIT, Boston University, and Malcolm was a star. He debated about capital punishment, and so we get to see his wisdom, his wit, his compassion, um, for human life, and um, that when he studied the dictionary, he didn't study it because he didn't know how to read or write. He studied the dictionary to learn the etymology of words, the root words, so that he could be his best. And these are values that were instilled in him by his parents. And so I think it's important for young people just to, recognize these qualities that are very important, not only for them, but for the parents, for us smart, forward thinking adults to instill in our children.
I can recall when I interviewed Cedella Marley, Bob Marley's daughter. She would talk about the way that her father was viewed, right? But at the end of the day, that was her daddy. And your father is viewed almost even in a bigger way than Bob Marley. Folks look at him as an icon, almost like as a religion. I mean, I used to carry this is the book that I had when I was 15. I still have it. I carried it with me like it was a Bible, and I would read it when I was going to predominantly white schools and just really feeling overwhelmed. But you being his daughter, is it ever strange? Is it ever awkward? 'Cause that's your dad, right? Although he passed when you were very young. Is it a strange feeling that he's revered as almost like a god?
Clay, this is how I was raised. And, so I was raised sharing my father. I'm so happy when people recognize his humanity. And, I think that we need a better education curriculum in our country so that we're clear that African American history is American history, that these leaders are American citizens. And if the terrorism of slavery and the subsequent massacres of Black Wall Street and Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Rosewood, Florida, for example, are taught in high school U.S. history classes to be as American as the Boston Tea Party, then our education is based on historical facts, and more citizens can understand the necessity for reparation,
Mm.
that we'd have the opportunity to ensure we are instilling a value system for our young people of truth, honesty, and human compassion.
Yes, absolutely. I do have to ask you this. I don't know if you've seen this on social media. I know you're an activist. You do a lot of work, but there has been these band of like black conservatives, black Trump supporters. One being Candace Owens, who like to bring up your father's name when he was critical of white liberals. And Candace has just said some deplorable things about folks like George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery. But what are your thoughts when you see people like a Candace Owens or some black conservatives randomly using your father's name and really just taking a quote out of context, in my opinion?
Well, listen, he provided the biggest critique of America, and he's quoted 53.7 thousand times per hour in social media. And this is the clearest evidence that young people are discovering the truth about Malcolm, and they're looking for leaders whose works provide insight and strategies that they can employ to meet the systemic challenges head on. And when people are trying to capitalize off of that instead of instilling good, wholesome values so that we can recognize right from wrong and roll up our sleeves willing to do the necessary work, then wonderful. But let's understand what we are really working
Gotcha.
toward. When my
I want to play a quote from your father that is often on social media, and I think it's so relevant right now. Listen to this.
I just told you a little while ago, these leaders that they call leaders, this included Lena Horne, this included Dick Gregory, and this included comedians, comics, trumpet players, baseball players. Show me in the white community where a comedian is a white leader. Show me in the white community where a singer is a white leader, or a dancer or a trumpet player is a white leader. These aren't leaders. These are puppets and clowns that have been set up over the white community and over the black community by the white community and have been made celebrities and usually say exactly what they know that the white man wants to hear.
That quote has been referenced a lot when it comes to Kanye West. For some people, when it comes to Ice Cube, for that meeting with Jared Kushner, still so relevant that when they want to speak to us, they oftentimes go to a celebrity. Can you just talk about that? What brilliant critique that people still reference today?
Again, that's the reason why I think it is important for our young people to understand the importance of, our education curriculum, including historical facts. Because these divisive tactics aren't. I mean, what is the point? There's a multi awareness, a movement of multiracial, multi nationalities, movement that's driving our nation towards a more civilized space. A synthetic identity is being born. Our society has to move forward. Bigotry and all its ugly hate is losing, and a new era has yet to define itself. I think the lesson for our young people is that cheaters lose. moral character wins. And we smart, forward thinking adults have to guide our young people if we want to see all the things that we want for our young people, if we want to see this carried off in the future. Because look around us, look at all of these challenges that are happening. Cheaters lose, moral character wins. And I think that that is really the lesson for our young people.
Absolutely. Do you think that your father would have? Do you think he ever saw a day where we'd have a black woman as vice president?
Absolutely. He said a society is measured by the progress of its women.
Mm, absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. Well, I got to tell you, it really is an honor to talk to you. I mean, I'm sure you hear it all the time, but your father changed my life. I'll tell you this: when the movie X came out, my mother said you can go see it as long as you read the book first. You ain't going to this movie not reading this book. So I read the book first, and I saw the movie, and of course, both just changed my life and just changed everything, and made me fall in love with my history and just the importance of knowing my history. So
Great
it's
mother.
just an honor.
Yes.
I'm sure you hear that all the time, but it was really a big deal for me, really a big deal. So it's an honor to talk to you. So I encourage folks to check out The Awakening of Malcolm X, a novel. It's available now. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Clay. It's again, a pleasure to chat with you pretty briefly. And I look forward to the next time.